everyone, welcome back to my channel, or you may be brand new and you've just clicked on this video because of the title, so welcome. My name's Kate and I've been making videos here on YouTube. This is my 9th year now, so I've been doing it for a while, and yeah, I make loads of videos about my lifestyle, my family, fashion, beauty, my home. There's loads over on my channel, so if you want to go and check it out or subscribe, then the button is down there. The button down there is red and it says subscribe. That means you're not subscribed to my channel, so I'd love you to go and click that if you enjoy this kind of thing and enjoy what you see. So a while back I made a video called Living with Health Anxiety, and when I've actually looked back on that video, I always say it was a couple of years ago, but actually it was coming up to 6 years ago. So that's actually quite a long time to have never made any more content about this, and it's the video that I get the most messages about still to this day. People asking me more questions, people saying that it helped them, which is amazing, all sorts of things. And I've been wanting to do this for so long. I feel like I put it off, I feel like I'm going to say the wrong thing, or it's going to be too long and rambly, and I've just realised that with this kind of topic I just need to talk, and if you want to listen and it's something that's relevant to you in your life, then you know, that's great, and then there will be other people that this video isn't for them. But maybe there's someone with anxiety in your life and it's not you, but it could help you understand it a bit more. I really don't know, but I do know that this video is the video for some people, and even if that's just a few people, this is who I'm making it for. I asked on Instagram, it was over a month ago now I think, questions about anxiety, what you would like to see in this video. One of the questions I got asked most was to tell you my story. So I did that in my health anxiety video back in 2013, but I realised I have like lots of new subscribers since then, and over my Instagram too, so I will briefly go over that. Obviously I'll link that video below if you want to go and see it, but it's me from a very different life perspective. It was before I became a mum. I was about 23 years old, so it's a really relevant video. Maybe you'd find that interesting too, but I'll quickly go over it. I first got health anxiety when I was about 11 years old. It was during the time that I was transitioning to secondary school. It was actually the first term of school that we had a lesson about, it was a food technology lesson, and the teacher was talking about allergic reactions to food. And looking back, she may not have said it like this at all, but I heard it as, you know, if you eat something that you're allergic to, you'll just drop down dead. And it triggered something off in me that was to be a real difficult path and like a road for me for quite a long time. Even to this day, it's something that has affected me ever since. And looking back, I know that health anxiety was something that was starting to affect me before that lesson. I mean, there were times where I didn't want to go to school, there were times where I worried I had different things, but it was that particular lesson that set it off. So after that it got to the point where I wouldn't eat at school, so some of the girls, it was an all-girls school, they started kind of saying, well, she's got anorexia and things, and obviously that is a mental health condition in itself. I personally have never had anorexia, bulimia, so I wouldn't want to, like I've said this in my last video, I remember saying it so clearly, I wouldn't want to talk about that because I don't feel like I'm educated enough. But what I have realised in the last few years even is that in a way it was a eating disorder, because I was restricting the food that I was eating, but it wasn't for a weight loss reason or looking at myself in the mirror and not being happy with the way I looked. It was literally, if I eat that I might die. That was the reason. And it got to the point, yeah, so I didn't eat at school, I didn't drink at school, not good at all, and I could only eat things when my mum had said, yes, that's fine, you know, nothing's going to happen to you, and she had to get used to saying this however many times a day I ate, and it could be anything from a plain chip to something that's a bit, you know, different, like, I don't know, a curry or something with lots of different ingredients in it, you know, it was literally anything. At this age as well, sort of 11 to 12, I also put away any nail varnishes I had, any like body sprays. Obviously at that age I didn't really have any makeup or much stuff, but again, I was scared I was allergic to it. I was scared I was allergic to shampoo and conditioner, so my mum had to always wash my hair for me, and like it got to a really bad point where I didn't go to school anymore and I was homeschooled. And I actually went back to school at the age of 14, so that's a lot of school to miss out on. I feel like that age is when you learn a lot about being a girl and being a teenager, and actually it really does have quite a big impact on your ability to socialise, which is something that I'll go on to a bit later, I think. So that kind of is like the beginning of it. A lot of people ask me what was the trigger, so that was kind of the trigger, and it's been something that has stuck for me ever since. So I don't have that phobia anymore particularly. Like, I've managed to work through that, and it isn't something that impacts me on a daily basis at all anymore, which is amazing. The only time it might bother me is maybe if I was, for example, when I went to Dubai, if I had something that I'd never eaten before, I would probably be a little bit reluctant, just because I was in a different country away from home and I'd never tried it before and it was a bit exotic. So that it can still affect me then, but obviously that's not something that affects me in everyday life, and usually I'll just think more rationally about it and it won't affect me. But health anxiety does still affect me on a day-to-day basis, sometimes worse than others. What will generally happen with me is I will get into like a rut of worrying about a certain illness, and this can be all different things, and sometimes I can even have the symptoms of that thing. So hypochondriac is a word, sorry I've dropped my pen, is a word that you guys have probably heard before, and actually it's not a very nice word. I think it has quite bad connotations, like, oh, she's such a hypochondriac, and I feel like also people with anxiety can often be tarred with a brush of like being like they over exaggerate or they are attention seeking, and honestly I can honestly say, hand on heart, I would do anything for it not to affect my life and not to worry about being ill and just get on with my life. But it's not always that easy, especially with something like your health, because you can get symptoms, for example, and then you could be really rational and think, okay, it's probably nothing, and not go to the doctor, and then you can be, is that very responsible because you're ignoring symptoms? So I just feel like with health, it's always, you're always kind of giving in, and I don't know, this is where I'm going to ramble. I'm really trying to explain it the best that I can, but basically I've had to realise over the years that maybe having anxiety is something that's never going to fully go away, whereas when I was a child I always thought there was maybe some magic cure for me and I wouldn't have to deal with it at all. But there's different degrees and different levels to which you can suffer with it and to which it can affect your everyday life, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. So I realise I've rambled on about myself for a while and that backstory was quite long, but it gives you a bit of an idea if you have had no idea about this, what it kind of is about for me. So I've got a lot of questions here and I really wanted to answer the most common ones. There are so many different ones though, so I'm just going to answer some questions, and then hopefully within these questions there'll be some tips and ideas for how you can cope if you're suffering with health anxiety or literally any kind of anxiety. These could be relevant too. So I talked about what my triggers are. Also nowadays, obviously that was the trigger that set it off, that lesson, but also nowadays my triggers can be if people are talking about an illness or someone dying of something that was illness related, or even if I see something on the telly that's maybe like, I can't watch medical programs at all, or something that pops up on Facebook about like a woman that died or somebody that died, it triggers off like, not a panic attack, but a very like sick, like twisted knot in my stomach, and it can really affect me for the rest of the day. I can be perfectly happy and just kind of getting on with my life, and then I'll hear that, and maybe it sounds selfish, but the first thoughts are, but that could happen to me, that's going to happen to me, I could die. And one thing I did want to say is that all the years I've had health anxiety, I've always been plagued with a lot of guilt, because the things that I'm worrying about, so just take for example worrying about having a certain type of cancer, there are people out there that is their reality and they're having to deal with the real physical illness, and I really don't want this to come across as I'm saying, you know, like, oh poor me, I'm so worried about getting something, and then someone could be sitting watching this video and thinking, well, what about me? I've actually got this is my actual life. So I really hope that anyone watching this can kind of like compartmentalize the two things. I'm not saying that I'm worse off than somebody with the actual illness. So I just wanted to really make that clear, because I feel like my mental health condition is quite a selfish one. Lots of people worry about something happening to their partner, their children, their parents. That's a really common worry as well. And I would say that I worry about all of those people to like what a normal level would be. Obviously I worry about my children and anything bad happening to them. Obviously I worry about anything bad happening to my mum and dad and my grandparents or Ricky. Like obviously I worry about that, but when it comes to my health anxiety, I think because it started when I was a child, before I had a husband and kids and stuff, it comes from a place of something's going to happen to me and then I'm not going to be able to be with them anymore. I might get loads of hate for that, but that is how it affects me. I don't ask it to affect me in that way, but it does. So I got a lot of questions about how does your husband deal with health anxiety. I kind of wish he was here to answer this. He's actually just gone out. He is very supportive, but he is the complete opposite to me. So he's never had a panic attack, he's never had anxiety, he's a very relaxed, laid back, easygoing guy. And I think that's one of the reasons we've been together for so long and we've got on so well. I was 17 when we first got together, and I had to kind of explain to him what this was, because I didn't tell him for quite a few months because I was embarrassed, and then it became quite clear that, you know, I had to tell him, and I was really scared that he was gonna not want to be with me anymore. So we were like 17 and 18, but he just has always stuck by me, and one thing I think that has always helped is he's never really let me, like, how can I explain it? For example, again, I'm just using this as an example. When we went to Dubai, we got on the plane and I stood up and said, I'm really sorry, I've got to go, I can't get on the plane. And he just was like, don't be so stupid, you need to sit down, I'm here with you, you're going to be fine. So he's very supportive in the fact that he'll be like, look, you're going to be alright, nothing's wrong with you. If I'm ever on my own and I have to text him, he's always supportive in that way. But he wouldn't let it consume me. He wouldn't let it be like, okay then don't do anything with your life, because he knows that that would ruin my life. So he's great, he's really, really great. And I also had a lot of questions, how would you support somebody that suffers with health anxiety? So I would say, like, a very similar answer is to support the person, but also always try and offer them help, and always try and see if, you know, you can get them to do the thing that's worrying them. It might not be as easy as that, because then no one would really be suffering with health anxiety, they just get on with their lives. But if you can try and get through to that person that, you know, shying away from the thing that they're scared of doing is the right thing, then you're not going to help that person. It's just going to make them worse and worse and worse. I think you have to come out of your comfort zone in order to start to deal with your anxiety, and doing things that you don't want to do and that scare you and that make you feel uncomfortable is actually the only way to start dealing with it. One of the main questions I want to answer, because I'm assuming that if you suffer with anxiety, it is interesting to know someone else's story, but what you really want is some tips and tricks and coping mechanisms, and that was really obvious with the questions that I was getting. So a lot of people asked me what my coping mechanisms for, and this person said, what are your ways of pulling yourself out of it? So I tried to think of some of the things that I do. So something that I've been doing in recent months, sort of maybe in the last 6 months or even a year, is to try and notice the signs of the panic attack just as they're starting and catch it really early. So for example, it could even be, you know, I can be out and I can feel my heart beating a bit faster, I'm over breathing, and instead of me going, oh god, what's wrong with me, like is it my heart, is there something physically wrong with me, I catch myself really quickly, and it might just be, no, you actually just got off the train really quickly, so you've got your heart rate up a bit, which is why your heart's going a bit too fast and why your breathing's got changed a bit. I kind of try and talk myself down and say, you know, this is the reason you're feeling like this, it's a panic attack. So before the adrenaline can start rushing through my body and cause a panic attack, I'm kind of stopping it, like nipping it in the bud straight away. And it's something that's really good to try and practice. I mean, it doesn't always work, but it works a lot of the time, and it's really helped me. And then straight after that, I'll try and distract myself with something else. So for example, with the boys, it's quite easy to just distract myself. They're actually a great distraction from my anxiety, because they've made me a lot less selfish, and I can't just think about myself and what I'm worried about. I have to think about them, and I want to be thinking about them more than I want to be thinking about the problems going around in my head. So they're always a great distraction. But if you're out with friends, or you know, even if you're just on your own somewhere and you're feeling anxious, you can try and notice little things around you just to take your mind off it. Try and, if you're outside, try and notice how many cars you can see, or if you're inside, maybe, I'm just looking around this room, but you could try and count how many photo frames you can see. It sounds stupid, but just that little thing will like make your brain change from focusing on the worries and the feelings that you're getting to something else, even if it's something really simple. If it has gotten a bit too far and it has kind of developed into like a bit of like hyperventilation or a panic attack, I do try and breathe in through my nose for 4, like the count of 4, and then out through my mouth for the count of 8, and that does help to regulate your breathing. So that's a good one to try and remember. And the other coping mechanism I put, which is easier said than done, is stay in the situation you're in and don't run away. When you have a panic attack, your body wants to run. It's a fight or flight mechanism in you. And if you run, again, you're sort of running away from the problem. I mean, unless you're actually in physical danger, that's why your body makes you feel that way, because it thinks you're in physical danger, so it's helping you get away from the situation. But most of the time with anxiety, you're not in any physical danger, so you don't need all that adrenaline, and it's pumping around your body and it's making you feel like crap. So try and stay in the situation, face it out, try and do all of those things I said before, because I've done it a couple of times in my life, not many, but when I have run away from the situation, I felt awful for so long afterwards. It's such like I failed. And if you can stay in the situation, you will always come through it. Nothing will happen to you. A panic attack will not cause you any harm, any physical harm, and you'll be so proud of yourself afterwards. There's a saying as well that I heard quite a while back now, and I thought it was so profound and it had a real effect on me, so I wanted to share it with you in case you hadn't heard it. And that is, when you hear hoofbeats, think of horses, not zebras. And at first I was a bit confused. So basically it was a term that was coined by a doctor. I think the doctor's called Dr. Theodore Woodward, I think. And basically what it means is that if you're worried about having something wrong with you, for example, that's really, really bad, think of the most logical explanation. It's much more likely to be something simple and not scary than the kind of rarer thing that it could be. Hopefully that explains what I'm trying to say, but it really did have an effect on me, and I do try and put that into practice. And the way my mind works, I'm kind of now like, I feel like now I've said that in a video that I'm going to have something badly wrong with me, but that is the way that health anxiety kind of affects you. It's always, yeah, but what if, yes, but what if, yes, but what if. And that's just something that you kind of have to deal with, but it really does honestly help me quite a lot to think of that, so I'll put it in the description box below. I got lots and lots of questions, very similar questions, about how becoming a mum affected my health anxiety. I feel like a lot of people wanted to know this, and I tried to think long and hard about how best to explain this, because it was very different with both pregnancies. So with Archie, my first pregnancy, it all went very, very smoothly, and in a weird way, when I got something that felt a bit weird, like a bit of dizziness or like a pain, I always thought, oh well, it's fine, it's just a normal pregnancy symptom, instead of thinking, what's wrong with me, it's something bad. So in a very odd way, being pregnant with him calmed me down, and I had a really good pregnancy, apart from maybe the first trimester where I was kind of, you get some weird hormones and a lot of people like feel really down. I definitely experienced that, but then the second and third were really great, really positive. And then after I had him, I feel like my mental health was quite good. There were a few things that affected me. It did used to affect me sometimes when there was lots of people around me. I did get quite panicky then, but that wore off as the months went on. And also I just got the general worries that, you know, something would happen to my baby or something would happen to me and I wouldn't be able to look after him and all of that kind of thing. But with him, I feel like I had a relatively good like run of mental health. With Elliot, it was a little bit different because I had a few problems during my pregnancy, and again, compared to a lot of people, I really didn't have any problems. It was very smooth sailing, but there were a few things that cropped up. I won't go into them now, they're all in my pregnancy updates, but that set me off worrying again that I had health issues, and that really affected me. It made me feel very down, very scared. So I found parts of my pregnancy with Elliot more difficult. But I feel like with pregnancy, you could have such varied worries, from worries of symptoms you would get when you're pregnant, to worrying about the birth, to worrying about becoming a mum and if you're going to be good enough. There's so many worries that come into it. It's very broad. So maybe I'll make a video just about anxiety as a mum. If you'd like to watch that, if you'd like me to make that, then maybe let me know in the comments below and I'll definitely do that. I think that could be really interesting. Another question was, how do you socialise and go out when you have health anxiety? So this was one that I was really keen to answer because it has been something that I've struggled with. As I said, I missed out on those first really important years of secondary school. So when I went back at 14, I felt like I had like this huge crash course in being a teenager. I was really lucky that I had friends around where I lived, so I wasn't like completely cut off and isolated from other people my age. I had friends that I would see, they would come to my house, I would go to their house, but I wasn't in that school environment. And then when I went back to school, it was a different school and it was a mixed school, so it was kind of like, whoa, I've got to get used to this really quickly. And I had all my own problems at school with skin and occasional bullying and, you know, girl problems, like girl world, just like Mean Girls really. No, not like Mean Girls, but you know what I mean. I had all of the normal problems, but I loved my school I went back to, and I did a lot of performing arts there, and that took my mind off things a lot, and that's where I met Ricky. So I have a lot of very happy memories of being at school once I went back. But anyway, socialising in general, I do struggle with, because sometimes I feel like I'm a bit strange, or maybe I worry that I'm going to have a panic attack in front of somebody and they're just going to think I'm weird, or I have to keep all my anxiety in so they don't know that I've got it. But actually, the more I'm around people my own age, the more I talk to them, the more I grow up, the more I realise that so many people have their own issues. It might not be the same as you, but they have them, and they're not going to think you're weird. You know, I grew up feeling like I was the only person in the world that wasn't at school and had health anxiety and had panic attacks, but I wasn't. I just have to kind of try and front that out and just try and be myself, and you'll meet the people that are your people, and then there'll be people that don't like you, and all I can really say is that that really doesn't matter, because they were never for you in the first place. And if it's an issue with maybe social anxiety and chatting to people, it is really hard to get into that. But I feel like you can always ask someone lots of questions. There's always so many questions you can ask to find out about somebody, and then that's what gets a conversation going. So that's what I try and do. I try and really like listen to what people have to say, show an interest in their lives, and then they'll ask you questions back, and then the conversation will get flowing and it will become easier. So someone also asked, how does health anxiety affect your daily routine? And this is a really difficult question, because sometimes it can affect me a lot. Some days, if I'm completely honest, some days I just don't even want to get out of bed, but I've got a family now and a job and things to do, so I have to. And other days I don't really think about it that much. Other days I have really good days. I also, something that I maybe should have touched on earlier, but I find it really hard to talk about still, is that I also have quite bad OCD. Now, this video has been going on for a long time, so I feel like that's just a completely different topic. But OCD can be a very common, I guess, symptom of somebody that has health anxiety, or that has anxiety in general. If you talk to somebody, a lot of people go, oh, I've got OCD. Yeah, or I really like to, you know, make sure I plump the cushions before I go to bed, or something like that. And to a certain extent, everybody has like maybe some little rituals or routines that they like to do that they would class as OCD. But also OCD can get to a point where it affects you on a daily basis, to the point where you can't really live a normal life. And I've suffered with it in different degrees as well since I was 11. And again, I feel like maybe that's a completely different video, but that is something that does still affect my everyday life. But I feel like maybe people don't even notice, people that I'm around notice it. So it affects me mentally, like inside, because I have to do this or I have to do that, but it doesn't affect, you know, me doing it, because I'll just still get up and do stuff anyway. Maybe it just takes me a bit longer, or I have to go a weird way about doing something. And when I'm in front of people that don't know I have OCD, I'm very, very good at hiding it. So yeah, anxiety and OCD affects my everyday life still, yeah. But there are ways that I try and cope with it, which are my coping mechanisms, which I mentioned earlier. This little guy just woke up from his nap. He's asking for his daddy, aren't you? Where's Dada? She's just gone out. He'll be back in a minute. Yeah, so some days it can really get me down, and other days I'm okay and I don't really focus on it as much. I think keeping busy is key. Sorry, I'm watching what he's doing. I feel like keeping busy is key to distract yourself and take your mind off it. And the more you kind of give in and just let it take over and consume you, it just gets worse and worse, and just like takes over you. Yeah, we'll go and get some more juice. Yeah, we'll go and get some. It just takes over you completely. And some days, like I said, I would just love to just put the cover back over my head and just stay snuggled up. But actually, that day I would probably have much worse mental health than if I just got up, got dressed and went and did something. And even just small little things when you have... You're drinking my drink. That's my water. Is it good? It's good. Sorry, this wasn't really meant to end like this, but it ends it on a happy note, I suppose. Even when you have anxiety, even just little little triumphs throughout the day, like you can start off really small. It could be going for a walk, or it could just be, you know, getting yourself dressed and putting your makeup on. Even those little victories and things ticked off your list are such great steps to making your mental state like healthier and making you feel better. So I know this video is so long. I'm really sorry. I just don't think there's any other way I can do it. I'm going to try and cut it down a bit, but I hope that you found it... Yeah, it's gone. I hope that you found it helpful anyway. Please leave me a comment below if you have any more questions, or if I can help in any way. If this video even just reaches one person and like speaks to them and helps, I'll be so happy. I'll leave links below of anything that I think is relevant, links to websites, also that quote that I mentioned, and also my tips for dealing with anxiety attacks and my coping mechanisms. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, and I'll see you again in my next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.